Some people think that, to be respected, you have to pound the table. Speak loudly. Command presence. But what if I told you that most of the time, the ones who speak the least are the ones who win the most? Sounds crazy, right? The truth is, real influence, the kind that moves people, opens doors, and builds admiration, doesn't come from force, but from subtlety. And maybe that's why so many people end up frustrated in their relationships, at work, and even at home. They're betting on volume, when the real secret lies in warmth. Ever noticed how some people get everything they want with just a calm gesture or a look, while others talk, and no one listens? There's a reason for that, and it's hidden in an ancient fable by Aesop that reveals a powerful truth about human behavior. And no, this isn't another Instagram motivational speech. This is real, practical emotional intelligence. You'll understand why trying to dominate might actually be pushing you further from everything you want to achieve. If you're tired of trying too hard to be heard and still feel ignored, or if you've been wondering why some people seem to have that something that draws others in without effort, stay with me until the end. This video isn't just a reflection, it's a mirror. And maybe when you look into it, you'll discover a lighter, wiser, and much more powerful version of yourself. In human interaction, we often see situations where pride speaks louder than empathy. When two people try to prove who's right, they're usually less interested in solving the problem and more focused on winning the argument. It's like the truth matters less than the invisible trophy of being right. Power struggles, even the silent ones, wear down relationships, close doors, and erode trust. And often, the root of it all is fear of appearing weak or vulnerable. In the Aesop's fable, The North Wind and the Sun, the two argue over who is stronger by trying to make a traveler take off his coat. The wind, arrogant and forceful, blows with all his might, but the harder he blows, the more tightly the man clings to his coat. It's a perfect metaphor for how aggressive attempts to control others often create resistance. In real life, that boss who yells to demand respect, or that partner who tries to dominate through intimidation, ends up creating nothing but distance and defensiveness. Who hasn't been in a conflict where all you really wanted was to be heard and acknowledged? But then the ego steps in, and instead of listening, we go on the attack. This silent battle, which plays out at work, in relationships, even on social media, is driven by a need to feel superior. But in the end, who really wins? Is winning an argument more valuable than nurturing a healthy, mature relationship? True strength lies in knowing when to yield and valuing active listening. A practical example, in a tough conversation, instead of interrupting to argue back, take a breath and listen fully. Reflect what you understood before responding. This disarms the other person and opens space for real dialogue. It sounds simple, but it takes maturity. And maturity isn't about being right, it's about making things right in a way where everyone grows. So before you blow like the wind, ask yourself if it wouldn't be better to warm like the sun. Pride might seem like a shield, but more often, it's just a wall we build around ourselves. And behind that wall, human connection gets lost. Strangely enough, the greatest power lies in kindness. And that brings us to another very interesting point. It's curious how many people still think being strong means being harsh. That to assert yourself, you have to raise your voice, pound the table, use sharp words. But in reality, if you have to yell to be heard, you've already lost people's respect before you even spoke. Real strength isn't in volume, it's in presence. And presence is built through consistency, not intimidation. Kindness isn't weakness. Kindness is strategy. Remember the fable? While the wind wastes energy trying to rip off the coat, the sun simply shines, and the traveler removes it willingly. This applies directly to everyday life. A sincere compliment opens more doors than a cold demand. An empathetic look disarms more effectively than 1,000 logical arguments. In real life, it's the patient teacher, the manager who listens, the parent who explains, not the one who imposes, who earns trust. When someone pushes you toward a direction, the natural response is to resist. But when that same person welcomes you, respects you, and shows the path gently, everything changes. Being kind isn't being passive, it's knowing the right moment to act firmly, without aggression. It's using the right tone, the right words at the right time. And let's be honest, that's an art only the wise have mastered. Applying this can be simpler than it seems. Instead of replying to a snarky comment with an even sharper one, try humor or empathy. Instead of demanding change from someone, ask what they need to make that change. In your relationships, ask more, criticize less. At work, recognize before you point out flaws. A small act of kindness can have more impact than any lecture. Because in the end, kindness transforms. It reaches where force can't, the heart. And when we learn to touch someone's heart, everything changes, including our ability to influence without needing to control. Speaking of which, there's a much more effective way to gain influence without using force at all. Real influence doesn't come from fear, it comes from admiration. No one follows someone out of obligation for very long, but they'll passionately follow someone who inspires them. This applies everywhere, to leadership at work, family dynamics, or that friend who everyone listens to because he always has something meaningful to say. What's the secret? He doesn't impose. He proposes. And that changes everything. In the fable, the sun never tells the traveler to remove the coat. He creates the conditions for it to happen naturally. That's the key to true influence, creating an environment where people want to listen to you. In practice, that means being clear in what you say, but above all, being consistent in what you do. No one trusts someone who preaches one thing and practices another. Influence begins with example, not with speeches. Want to be heard? Then listen. Want to be respected? Show respect. Want to lead? Serve. The influence game is a mirror. The more you offer without expecting immediate return, the more trust you build. And trust is the fertile ground where influence grows. Whether on social media, at home, or in your business, the formula is simple, even if not always easy to apply. To start applying this today, try small actions, send a genuine message appreciating someone's effort, publicly recognize a contribution that went unnoticed, ask for someone's opinion with real openness, without trying to steer their answer. These seemingly small actions build emotional authority. And those with emotional authority influence naturally. And you know what's most interesting? Influence isn't manipulation, it's touching someone else with truth. And once that happens, the bond shifts to a new level. People begin to trust you, open up, and listen to you differently. That's where the true power to transform relationships begins. Even those that once felt cold or distant. Because when connection warms up, the relationship changes too. We live in an emotionally cold era. Quick messages, auto-responses, hearts instead of words. But you know what warms up any relationship? Genuine presence. That look that listens, that touch that soothes, that word that shows up before judgment. Emotional warmth doesn't require physical effort, it requires emotional intention. In the fable, the sun doesn't just warm the traveler's body, he creates a comfortable environment. In human relationships, that translates to empathy. It's when you understand what the other person feels, even without them saying it. It's asking, "Are you really okay?" when the smile seems forced. It's offering a shoulder without needing to understand the pain. That warms. That heals. Emotionally warm people aren't the loudest, but they're the most felt. They leave a mark not because they're intense, but because they're human. They know affection doesn't need explanation, only intention. Sometimes all someone needs is to know that someone truly cares. And that kind of presence can't be bought. It must be nurtured day by day. Want to try this today? Here's a challenge. Choose one person, a coworker, a family member, or someone you barely speak to, and show genuine interest. Ask how their day went, send a message with no hidden motive, offer help without expecting anything back. You'll be surprised by the response. Sometimes, one small gesture warms a heart that's been cold for a long time. And the most curious part? The more warmth you give, the more you receive. Relationships transform, bonds strengthen, resentments melt. And in this new emotional climate, even conflicts become lighter. Because when the environment is full of human warmth, anything can be said, with care, with truth, with humanity. And that brings us to one final, essential element few people master. Subtlety is an art few people value, but it changes everything it touches. It doesn't shout, it doesn't force, it doesn't invade. It arrives quietly, but leaves a lasting impact. In Aesop's fable, the sun wins not through power, but through emotional intelligence, knowing when to hold back and when to warm. Acting with subtlety is often more powerful than any impulsive reaction. Being subtle means knowing that not every truth needs to be thrown in someone's face. Sometimes, it needs to be gently shown, like pointing the way instead of pushing someone toward it. In daily life, this shows up in delicate conversations, tough decisions, necessary corrections. Wise people don't point fingers, they extend hands. They don't accuse, they invite reflection. A practical example? Instead of saying you're wrong, try saying, have you considered this other perspective? The change in approach opens doors, it doesn't build walls. When you want someone to change, force intimidates, but subtlety invites. And it's in that inviting space that the biggest transformations happen, naturally. Wise people aren't noticed by how imposing they are, but by how they make others feel. They have a kind of power that doesn't need to be announced. It's felt in the details, in the tone of their voice, in the pause before answering, in the silence that says more than words. Acting with subtlety means deliberately choosing the path of emotional maturity. And maybe, just maybe, that's one of the greatest secrets of personal growth. Understanding that not everything needs to be won. Some things need to be understood, others simply accepted. When you apply subtlety, you not only resolve more conflicts, you often prevent them from happening in the first place. Now tell me, what have you been choosing in your relationships? The wind that pushes, or the sun that warms? Because deep down, the way we choose to act, with force or with kindness, is what determines whether we push people away or truly bring them closer. And no, this isn't just about behavior, it's about emotional maturity, real influence, and wise choices. How many times have you missed an opportunity because you tried to control everything? How many times could you have gained more if you had just listened more? The truth is, you don't have to change the whole world. You just need to start by changing the way you show up in the little moments. A more thoughtful message, a well-placed silence, a gesture of empathy instead of a reactive outburst. Transformation begins in the subtleties. And those who learn to command their tone, with softness and presence, gain a kind of authority that shouts without ever raising their voice. So, what's your next move? Will you keep trying to impose, or start to inspire? Tell me in the comments which part of this video resonated with you the most. I genuinely want to know. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and leave a like, because every week I bring you reflections like this one to help you grow on the inside, so you can achieve more on the outside. And hey, this is just the beginning.